Do you know who wrote the first ever opera? If you've studied music for a while, you might know the answer. It's Monteverdi with L'Orfeo, right? Everyone who studied music knows that. Well, actually, that's wrong. This is a brief timeline of how the genre of opera came to be. The first opera ever performed was probably Jacopo Peri's Daphne, and the first surviving opera is Peri's Eurydice. Monteverdi only appears far down this list with his opera L'Orfeo. This opera is also about Orpheus and Eurydice. So why is Monteverdi usually the one given credit for inventing the entire genre of opera, with an opera based on a subject that had already been done before? What did Monteverdi do differently to revolutionize the entire genre? Monteverdi was born in Cremona, Italy in 1567 and trained by the local cathedral's music director. Monteverdi was a prodigy, a young composer who had 2 volumes of music published already at the age of 16. He was also a proficient viol and viola player. In 1590, he secured a post at the Mantua court as a suonatore di vihuola, or a viola player, under the service of the Duke of Mantua, Vincenzo Gonzaga, who later commissioned Monteverdi's first opera, L'Orfeo. Monteverdi later held the prestigious post as the Maestro della Musica, the Master of Music. Now, around this time, a cultural movement known as Humanism was emerging. The ancient Greek and Roman lifestyle, their thoughts and writings were deeply contemplated by Renaissance scholars, with the aim to better understand human nature and potential. Now, why is this relevant? Well, freedom, autonomy, well-being and progress became the focus. Music was no longer just art for religion and pleasure, nor was it simply a mathematical concept as it was often considered by the Greeks. Music instead needed to express human understanding and sympathy. It needed to deepen one's perception of oneself, and it needed to persuade the audience to feel a certain way. As the focus shifted and people began to view music as something humanistic, emotions emerged as the vessel of communication, expression, and persuasion. In other words, emotions became essential to music. And that's where Monteverdi comes in. As the Maestro della Musica at the Mantua court, he was perfectly positioned to create a new form of music that incorporated these cultural developments and elevated the art form to new heights. There was also newfound importance in text for music, as words and their meaning were prioritized even over the music itself, and composers began to compose music that was primarily inspired by the text and sought ways to express its meaning. Monteverdi called this innovative approach Seconda Practica, or second practice. Seconda Practica included music consisting of multiple parts with a bass line that was separate from voices, a single melodic line supported by harmonies which would match the text, and individual words from the text imbued with emotional color and sentiment, acquiring their unique meaning from their pitch, duration, and supporting harmonies. To understand Monteverdi's achievement, let's take a quick look at some of the genres that eventually became opera. One of these genres was the pastoral drama. This is a play written in verse, with songs and music played in between the verses, telling the story of a love so blissful in a peaceful paradise on earth where its inhabitants live in perfect harmony with mythological figures. As well as the pastoral drama, there was the madrigal, a sort of secular vocal music, some of which were further developed into small-scale dramas, which were then arranged into a series to portray a progressing plot, better known as a madrigal cycle, or, if the subject matter is comic, a madrigal comedy. And while those two resemble operas in some sense, the intermedio was the genre that was believed to have directly inspired opera. Originally created to mark moments between acts of a play, intermedia were often about a mythological subject. By the early 17th century, the intermedio gradually evolved into a version of a musical drama. Some intermedi were simple and brief, while others were decorated with dance, choral and instrumental music, costumes, as well as stage effects for the full experience. It was a spectacle. So let's get to the real deal, the opera. Monteverdi's L'Orfeo is a 5-act opera based on the legend of Orpheus and Eurydice. It was set to a libretto written by the poet Alessandro Striggio. Monteverdi was daring in his attempt to push boundaries and was a pioneer in his time for composing for a much larger group of instruments and experimenting with different combinations of sounds and timbre. The opera is written for about 40 instruments, which is a pretty big orchestra for the time, and he categorized the majority of these instruments into 3 main groups: strings, brass, and continuo. The group of strings consists of double basses, kit violins, violas, and cellos, while 2 cornets, 3 or 4 trumpets, and 4 or 5 trombones make up the group of brass. The continuo part includes 2 harpsichords, 2 or 3 chitarroni, 2 pipe organs, 3 bass viola da gamba, a regal or a small reed organ, and a double harp, which by the way isn't 2 harps, but it's 1 harp with 2 rows of strings, 2 recorders, and 1 or more citerns, which are a plucked string instrument. For its time, this is an insanely large orchestra. Yet, in spite of its size, Monteverdi's sensitivity to the nuances of the relationship between music and text, the different timbres of the instruments that represent each character, makes L'Orfeo all the more captivating. Furthermore, he created atmospheres specific to the scenes by using different groups of instruments of contrasting timbres. For example, the pastoral fields of Thrace are portrayed with the harmonious and warm timbre of the harp, harpsichords, organ, strings, recorders, and the chitarroni. But the underworld is portrayed by daunting, heavy brass. In spite of the size of this orchestra, only a basso continuo accompanies solo voices in order to further highlight the text and emotions being portrayed. This leads us to another speciality of Monteverdi's, which is word painting, where the music composed reflects the literal meaning of the text in the context of the story being told. There are many memorable moments in this opera, most notably in Act 2, where the messenger brings the news that Eurydice has suffered a fatal snakebite. The messenger cries out with, "Ah, bitter fate, ah, wicked and cruel destiny, hurtful stars, insatiable heaven," in A minor, and urges the shepherds to stop singing. It is also no coincidence that Monteverdi wrote a diminished, dissonant chord for the word acerbo, meaning bitter. Unaware of the situation, they resume singing until Orfeo poses the question, "Donde vieni? Where do you come from? Where are you going, nymph? What do you bring?" The messenger replies with the dreaded news, and Monteverdi showcases his excellence with word painting in a melodic line consisting of simple intervals. The messenger speaks of Eurydice, Orpheus's beloved bride. In this radiant and uplifting phrase, Orpheus asks, "Alas, what do I hear?" To which the messenger answers, "Your beloved spouse." A phrase about Eurydice set to the very same melody, followed by the grave news, she is dead. Orpheus is inconsolable and sings the melancholic, you are dead, my life." Which begins with a gut-wrenching diminished fourth. But Orpheus wants Eurydice back, and so he attempts to charm the ferryman of the underworld to let him in by singing with his lyre and begging him, "Give me back my beloved. O gods of Tartarus, give me back my beloved." This phrase rises in sequence in heart-wrenching semitones, from B flat to B natural, C to C sharp, resolving onto a D. So, by combining existing styles and genres, such as the monody, the duet, madrigals, dances, and more, Monteverdi created a never-before-seen spectacle of music and drama, rich in expression and dramatic intensity. By doing this, Monteverdi brought musical storytelling to a whole new level. L'Orfeo premiered in 1607 and was a huge success. The Mantuan court poet and theologian Cherubino Ferrari described that both poet and musician have depicted the inclinations of the heart so skillfully that it could not have been done better. The music, observing due propriety, serves the poetry so well that nothing more beautiful is to be heard anywhere. Though Monteverdi was not the first in history to write an opera, nor was he the first to write one about Orpheus and Eurydice, he completely revolutionized the genre with his undeniable creativity, genius, and years of experience as a composer. He successfully transformed and reinvented the genre of opera with L'Orfeo, and it is undoubtedly one of the most influential works of music. The fact that it's still performed today, more than 400 years after its premiere, speaks for its significance in history. As the opera historian Mark Ringer puts it, Monteverdi's music speaks to us with unparalleled directness. He found the means for the first comprehensive portrayal of the human subject in music. He taught humanity what we look and sound like on the operatic stage. If you want to discover more great music, then let me introduce you to 14 masterpieces. I've made a mini course, 14 pieces, where each piece of music is chosen not only because it's a great piece, but because it will teach you how to listen to music. So you'll discover some amazing music, but you'll also develop your ears and get a stronger understanding of how to appreciate and enjoy classical music. You can check it out in the link in the description, or go to insidethescore.com/14 pieces. Thank you for watching.